Call of Duty has had a rough few years with dwindling sales numbers and fan excitement. With Infinity Ward's Modern Warfare sequel though, Activision's hoping to bring the franchise back to its glory days. However, the tricky thing is that the gaming landscape has changed drastically since 2019. So does Modern Warfare 2 have the legs to succeed? And is anyone even hyped for it? Well, let's dive in and find out. First up, Infinity Ward just doesn't miss. Call of Duty's always been a franchise that's had its ups and downs. Like, even when you look as far back as the earlier games, we've never really gotten a cadence from the games that makes us go like, yeah, all of these are great entries. And it all comes down to how the series is developed. You see, it's almost impossible to develop a game in a single year. So, to maintain its yearly release cycle, Call of Duty games are developed by a bunch of studios that take turns. As a result, each team gets around 3 years to finish up its game and release it. Now, the thing is that not all studios are created equal, and despite striving for a consistent flow of quality games, Call of Duty suffers from a similar syndrome. It's not anyone's fault either. Really, it's just the way these things work, which is why we've got the top tier COD studio Infinity Ward, the second tier Treyarch, and then Sledgehammer. Oh, and let's not forget, there are tons of support studios like Raven and Toys for Bob that work on these games too. With that said, we haven't really gotten many great Call of Duty installments from the likes of Sledgehammer, and even Treyarch's had its slip-ups with the Black Ops series. Infinity Ward, though, continues to have an unscathed record with its Modern Warfare franchise. Not only was it great back in the day with the OG trilogy, but even the reboot got a ton of praise from fans and press alike, so we wouldn't hedge our bets against them this time around either. However, Call of Duty hasn't had a great game for a while now. We know that Infinity Ward has a great record when it comes to releasing top-notch Call of Duty games, but it seems like people just aren't as interested in the franchise as a whole these days. Why, you ask? Well, it comes down to the fact that we've been on a run of mediocre entries like Black Ops, Cold War, and Vanguard, which has left a bit of a sour taste in everyone's mouth. On top of that, there's the issue of the games feeling too repetitive as well. For instance, back in the day, there was a massive difference between how each series played. Black Ops had its faster run and gun combat, while Modern Warfare felt a bit slower and tactical. These days, it's all the same, and perhaps that's why there's this growing fatigue among the community. Oh, and it's also worth mentioning that these games cost over $70 now if you want the latest and greatest on next-gen hardware, and not everyone has that sort of money to spend on something that's super similar to last year's entry. Besides, it's not like Activision has done itself any favors when it comes to keeping its brand image positive, like from the workplace harassment lawsuit to the predatory monetization in Diablo Immortal. The publisher's been on a downhill trajectory for a while now. With that said, there's still a silver lining for the Call of Duty franchise. Now, Modern Warfare 2's summer showing was fantastic. Of course, there's nothing wrong with being skeptical. After all, hype rarely translates into a good game. Having said that, we've seen a good chunk of Modern Warfare 2 gameplay already, and honestly, it looks pretty good. Like, everything from the visuals to the gunplay felt solid. Also, it's gonna be a big step up just in terms of engine tech, so it's got a lot going for it. On top of that, we've also got fan favorite characters like Captain Price, Soap, and Ghost coming back to the franchise. And if you've ever seen those guys in action together in the older games, then you'd know that we're in for a treat, especially when it comes to the single-player campaign. However, these days, most Call of Duty players don't actually care much for the story, as over the past few years, it's become very cookie-cutter. According to Infinity Ward, though, Modern Warfare 2 is going to focus on the characters rather than the bigger conflict at hand, which honestly sounds like a welcome departure for the franchise. If you remember, the OG Modern Warfare games were great because of their characters, and not due to some convoluted plot to stop World War III from happening. Obviously, you need those awe-inspiring moments for all the puzzle pieces to fall into place, but the squad's relationship and dynamics are still at the forefront. With that said, we wouldn't mind an insane set piece either. Like, remember when the Eiffel Tower fell in Modern Warfare 3? Wasn't that the coolest thing ever back then? Up next, Warzone is still the big thing here, and we know that everyone's looking at Modern Warfare 2 to be this savior for the franchise. But the truth is, it doesn't actually matter as much as you may think. Instead, the weight of the Call of Duty series lies solely on the shoulders of the Battle Royale mode, Warzone. And, to be honest, it's doing an incredible job of keeping the franchise afloat. In fact, it's easily one of the biggest games out there right now, despite being almost 3 years old at this point. Besides, it continues to dominate the BR space next to a behemoth like Fortnite. Now, you might be wondering, what does Warzone have to do in all this? Well, the answer to that's pretty simple. You see, the success of Modern Warfare 2 is actually tied to the Battle Royale game because, yep, you guessed it, we're getting a Warzone 2 from Infinity Ward 2. Also, if you remember, the current Warzone is also based on the first game, so Activision has to make sure that everything translates well between the two entries without cannibalizing each other. On top of that, they've also got to ensure that the gunplay for the Battle Royale feels as tight as it's ever been. And since it's going to be based on Modern Warfare 2, then we know that there's some pretty deep care being put into the mainline game. So all in all, you could say that Infinity Ward's latest effort somehow manages to be super important without actually having all the attention on it. These are literally the building blocks of the Warzone experience you're going to have for the next few years, which means that it has to be good and failure isn't even an option here. With that said, Call of Duty has some competition this fall, to be fair. It almost feels like we say the same thing every year and it never comes true. For instance, last year, everyone said that Call of Duty would be going against Halo Infinite and Battlefield 2042. And while that was kinda accurate, it was ultimately Vanguard's own fault for not hitting the mark as hard as it should have. This year, however, things are a bit different. For starters, Battlefield is seeing a resurgence after a bunch of much-needed updates, so it'll be better positioned against Modern Warfare 2 come fall. On top of that, we've got Activision Blizzard's own Overwatch 2 gearing up for launch in October as well, and judging from the initial impressions and everything, it's gonna be a pretty huge launch for the hero shooter. Oh, and there's the issue of $70 again. These days, premium shooters are super rare, as most companies prefer to go down the free-to-play route. I mean, even Blizzard itself has chosen that path for Overwatch 2. Also, let's not forget that one of the biggest criticisms of Battlefield 2042 was the fact that it was a premium game with a ton of bugs, so it's going to be hard for the latest Call of Duty game to compete in the space and post the same numbers that it's done for the past few years. But then, Modern Warfare doesn't need to compete either. Over the past 2 decades, Call of Duty's main source of pride has been its sales numbers. Like, even during rough years, the game continues to be one of, if not the best seller of the year. However, the gaming landscape's changing now, and publishers care more about active users than outright sales. Now, does Modern Warfare 2 retain players? Well, the answer's pretty simple: Game Pass. You see, Microsoft's currently going through regulatory checks for its Activision Blizzard acquisition. Once that's approved by the authorities, then pretty much every Call of Duty game's gonna come to Xbox's subscription service, Game Pass. And if a game like Modern Warfare 2 makes its way to the platform, then it's easily gonna surpass tens of millions of players without ever having to sell a single unit. So, at the end of the day, sales number or hype probably doesn't even matter. Instead, everyone's gonna try out the game anyway because, well, it's Call of Duty. Besides, once you get into the addictive loop of playing a COD multiplayer game, there's really no going back. That's a wrap for this video. Do you think that Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 will dominate the FPS space this fall? Let us know in the comments section below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.